Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:06 on this Wednesday morning. Good morning. It's O'Connor and Company. You know how you spend the last half hour talking with your colleagues in a nice, soft, good morning sort of voice, Julie Gunlock, and then it's time to actually talk to the greater Mid-Atlantic area, and you feel, oh, gosh, I'm not ready to actually have a broadcast sounding voice. You know, a professional probably would have cleared his throat before the red light went on. Not me. I like to keep it real. Good morning, Julie. Good luck. Good to have you here. At 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us. At 7:05, Tim Hobart will give us all the details on the Memorial Day parade scheduled for this Monday. 7:35, Jeffrey Trimbath, president of Maryland Family Institute, working with the Maryland Baptist Convention to protect families and the church from, well, Maryland law. And then at 8:05, Hans von Spakovsky, he's an election expert. We need election law experts because we're told that the President of the United States violated election law. That's what this trial up in New York is all about. You know, it's not about a porn star or a non-disclosure agreement. We're told that it is a violation of election law. That's why we're having this whole trial. And, well, election law experts will not be allowed to testify in the trial. Judge won't allow it. We'll let you hear from an election law expert here today, but the jury won't be allowed to hear from an election law expert. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm having issues with that.
Yeah, don't look at me. I've got nothing.
Wait, so you're the judge. You let the porn star on the stand.
Mm-hmm.
Then the prosecutors say, by the way, he violated election law. That's how this rises to the level of felony.
I have a little nugget of information that might help explain this. I hear the judge isn't a good judge.
Oh, interesting.
That might.
Not using a whole lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgment.
Right. So, there you go.
So the jury will get this case that is ostensibly about a violation of election law, which, by the way, is a federal crime, not a state crime. But then let's set that aside, because that ship has already sailed. And at no point will they actually hear from an election law expert. In fact, the prosecution didn't even bring up an election law expert to explain election law. The defense wanted to bring up an election law expert, somebody who actually sat on the Federal Elections Commission. And the judge says, well, we won't be needing any of that. Do you have a porn star by any chance you'd like to testify? Just to give the other view. Well, it is always good to know a porn star's positions.
That's right.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. We will discuss the case in New York quite a bit as the morning goes on. But there's another outrageous Banana Republic-style investigation into the former president that, yes, is sort of in suspended animation at this time, but we are still learning more about it because of FOIA requests and the demands for transparency. This has to do with the raid on former President Donald Trump's private residence in Mar-a-Lago. This, you'll remember, was August of 2022 when armed FBI agents stormed through the doors in the early morning hours and seized boxes of documents. This was, of course, after taking those documents, strewing them on the floor, covering them up with cover sheets that say top secret, don't look here, as if they were stapled to those documents in the folder boxes, and then taking a picture, putting it on the media, and making it look like Donald Trump was, you know, some bad guy in a Tom Clancy novel.
Yep.
Well, we've now learned that the warrant for this FBI raid had some fascinating language included in it. Most disturbingly, language saying that the FBI was authorized to use deadly force if necessary while conducting their raid. And setting aside the assumption that when the FBI, law enforcement agents of any stripe, go into a home that is believed to be a scene of a crime, and they are authorized by the court to conduct some sort of seizure of property, there is always an assumption that they might be met with resistance. And I'm assuming, because I love law enforcement and I want law enforcement to be able to protect themselves and their families, that they are authorized to use force to protect themselves, to serve the warrant. I get that. And I know that there's a lot of people who say, oh, this is no big deal. Well, Again, standard operating procedure. I do want the law enforcement in this country to be able to protect themselves if they're met with a hostile contact. But this is not standard operating procedure. Nothing about this is standard, Julie.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's essentially what you're saying is for every
boilerplate probably
there's a cut and paste situation going on here, right? With every every time they go into and to search.
Yeah, I mean, think about
property.
The other raids that the FBI has to conduct.
I get it.
Like people who pray the rosary in front of an abortion clinic.
Yeah,
those are dangerous people, Julie.
Yeah.
They have to be shot down if they, what happens if they pull out a rosary from their pocket? You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but the idea that you would just cut and paste a standard sort of document into this warrant to go into Mar-a-Lago is so crazy because Donald Trump has something called Secret Service. So you're going to be met by another law enforcement agency.
Yeah. Did they ever play this out?
Right.
Did they ever say, okay, Attorney General Garland, we need you to sign this warrant because we got to go in. And, of course, we're going to have the standard use of deadly force. And nobody in the room said, hold on a minute.
Because,
hold on.
I mean, the Secret Service is charged with protecting the president and, people who are going to come in.
So what are they supposed to do? We're gonna have a gunfire at the OK Corral down there at Mar-a-Lago?
Right. Also, Trump, I mean, besides the fact that you're going to be met by another, law enforcement agency, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Trump has private security. So I just find this really
Julie,
suspect.
I think we can figure this out real fast. So again, nobody used any judgment in this case, and in any way whatsoever. They never have, and they continue not to, as we've seen from the revelations about how they treated the evidence and how they treated Donald Trump, unlike anyone else. But here's the great way to show us the warrant. When the FBI went into Joe Biden's private home to get his classified documents.
Very good.
Let's see that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an apples-to-apples comparison, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The FBI did, in fact, go into his home to seize classified documents that he had strewn in his garage.
Yeah.
There had to be some paperwork allowing them to do that. So let's see it. Let's see if they were.
Very good.
Let's see if somebody just said, it's the standard, just use the usual warrant. Let's see what that was. One wonders if Barack Obama's home was raided by the FBI post-presidency, if everyone would say, oh, by the way, go ahead and use deadly force if necessary. And something tells me no. Something tells me someone would have stepped in and said, well, let's take that language out because we don't want anything horrible to happen, right?
Wow.
Julie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. Well, and it is Merrick Garland, by the way. He said that he personally approved this decision to seek the warrant, and that means that his name is on the warrant, and that means that he's the one who personally approved the language in the warrant. Authorities were also told to conceal their law enforcement equipment, come armed with ammo, handcuffs, and medium and large-sized bolt cutters.
Good God.
Those were all notes in the document, because, it's a drug bust, man. Got to get those bad guys. This is like El Capo. It's fun.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. Making sense of mainstream media because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Donald Trump has the Truth Social app. This is, of course, his social media platform that he created after Twitter banned him, and now it's worth billions. That's what happens. He took to the Truth Social app, put out a truth that says this: wow, I just came out of the Biden witch hunt trial in Manhattan, the icebox. I wonder, are they cranking the air conditioning in there?
It must be.
Called it the icebox. And was shown reports that crooked Joe Biden's DOJ in their illegal and unconstitutional raid of Mar-a-Lago authorized the FBI to use deadly lethal force. Now we know for sure that Joe Biden is a serious threat to democracy. He's mentally unfit to hold office. 25th Amendment. Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, said. Maybe the Attorney General would like to come to Congress and explain all this under oath to the American people.
Well, Larry, that would be a great question to ask. Did Joe Biden, was the authorization to use deadly force also approved for Joe Biden's raid?
Yeah.
That would be a great question. Let's see it.
Or even better, with this lot, I would make the question, can you show us the warrant for Joe Biden's home? Because I wouldn't believe anything that he says. Here's what they do. They go up on Capitol Hill. They're asked a question like that. They lie. And then years later, we find out the truth, and then no one holds them for account for lying under oath. So
That's
now
right.
what?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that will help anything, but yeah, that would certainly be a way to know when they say this is just standard, it's boilerplate. Maybe when you're raiding the home of a former president and you know that there's going to be a lot of scrutiny to the entire operation, maybe it's not boilerplate time. As you put it, maybe it's not cut and paste time. Maybe we go the extra step and decide whether we want that language in there. Because what did they think was going to happen? Did they think that Trump was going to stand there with a shotgun? Say, get off my property, you feds. Is that what was going to happen?
Judge Cannon is the reason we're seeing this. She released these files. Julie Kelly went through these files. And, Judge Cannon is really a hero for exposing this. It's really important that the American public see the lengths that Joe Biden's DOJ has gone to really harm President Trump. It's really scary stuff.
Yeah, and, Congressman Jordan has a subcommittee of the Oversight Committee that is overseen by Chairman Comer, and the name of it is the weaponization of the federal government. And people think that it's, this is Trump's lackeys and his flying monkeys doing his work and using Congress to sort of politicize what's basic law enforcement and all this stuff. And they've criticized the use of the word weaponization, but it's pretty literal in this case. And when we talk about the fact that the President of the United States, while facing these bogus charges up in Manhattan, does not have a basic First Amendment right to defend himself in the court of public opinion. The fact that, yesterday we saw all these congressmen and all these people standing in front of cameras saying that it's a sham trial, that the judge is crooked, that these charges would have never been brought if it weren't the man running for president, that these are people who are affiliated with Joe Biden and his political party who are using the force of law against an innocent man during an election, which is third world stuff. All of those things that these congressmen and media personalities said yesterday to the media, if Donald Trump, the man who's actually the defendant, if he had said those things, the judge would have put him in jail. That is an obvious, illogical application of the First Amendment. If person A can say it and it's fine, but person B says the same thing, he's violating the law, that doesn't make any sense. And when we point that out, this isn't just about defending Donald Trump. This is a pattern of behavior across the board, and it is about what the government is allowed to do to violate our rights. We all have rights. The Constitution protects those rights, but under certain circumstances, we allow the government to violate those rights, but only if they do certain things, and only if it's to protect our country or to protect our local municipality. One of the things we allow the government to do is to kill us, right? We have an agreement. We have made an agreement with the U.S. government that in certain circumstances, the FBI can take our life, but only in certain circumstances. And the Attorney General of the United States decided that this was one of those circumstances, that if necessary, the FBI could shoot and kill Donald Trump. And at that point, when that power is being used, somebody should hit the pause button and say, can we talk this out for a minute? And that never happened. Or it did, and, they said, Merrick Garland said, well, this is how Joe Biden puts me on the Supreme Court. I take care of his biggest problem.
We are going to see everybody on MSNBC and everybody in the mainstream media do that, just as you say. This is boilerplate. This is standard language. This is just, it's just a cut and paste. It's in every. No, they did. They were not going to shoot and kill Donald Trump. No, there was no way. And they're also going to say this is a smear on the FBI. what you've laid out is that's exactly what should have happened. If there is boilerplate languages, if there is standard language, if there is cut and paste behavior here, we're talking about a former president. Yeah. This is not a normal raid on someone's house. This is a former president. This is Mar-a-Lago. You gotta be careful about this.
They treated him like a mob boss and a drug lord.
They did.
Or a traditional Latin Catholic. That's how bad and dangerous they think he is.
Yes.
I will say this, though. Donald Trump has often said on the campaign trail this year, if they can do this to me, they can do it to you. So when they say, this is how we treat everybody, maybe we should believe them. Maybe that's actually part of the point, too. It's 5:23.
Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37, and we are already we're at lightning speed through this morning. But buckle up, sit down right with us, and we're going to get through it together because we got a lot to get to. 6:35 Cal Thomas, 7:05 Tim Holbert on the Memorial Day Parade, 7:35 Jeffrey Trimbath of the Maryland Family Institute, and at 8:05 Hans von Spakovsky on the Trump trial. And the judge not wanting to hear about any election law because, it's election law. He literally does not want an expert to speak about the law that the guy is being prosecuted for. But it's a completely fair situation there, Julie. I can't get over it. Every time I say it, I feel like I'm in sort of Wonderland through the looking glass.
Twilight Zone, yeah.
Speaking of being through the looking glass, Julie. Good morning, Julie. That's Julie Gunlock. I'm Larry O'Connor. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Bill Maher is making the round. He's got a book. All right. So Bill Maher is like everywhere. It's like a rash and you can't itch it. And we've been playing a lot of Bill Maher recently because everyone's like, oh, Bill Maher's gone conservative. Bill Maher's red pilled. Bill Maher's a liberal. He's still a liberal. He has two differences. He's not a woke leftist, which is not the same thing, even though that's really all you hear from the Democrats these days. The Democratic Party isn't liberal anymore. The Democratic Party is woke. They're leftist.
Yeah.
When the president of the United States still has to,
They're radical. They're radical.
100%. He can't tell you what a woman actually is, the president.
Right.
Mr. Moderate, Mr., Joe's,
Larry,
old
look
school.
at any college campus. That is the left today.
Yeah.
That is the left.
Bill Maher's a liberal.
Monsters. Yeah.
So one distinction is he's not a woke radical leftist. Number two, he actually enjoys engaging in conversations with people he disagrees with and even likes them.
And
I've told the story before when Andrew Breitbart, the last time he was on Real Time, I was with him that night, and they had an after party. And at the party, he and John Waters, the filmmaker, the avant-garde filmmaker, Andrew Breitbart, John Waters, and Bill Maher were in the center of the room at the bar having a blast. Just the three of them. I'll always remember this visual image of mine that I have of the three of them.
Yeah.
And everyone on Bill Maher's staff they were all whispering, and they were angry that Bill was hanging out with Andrew Breitbart.
Yeah.
And that John Waters would dare be seen with Andrew. But Bill Maher actually enjoys engaging with people who disagree with him, and he doesn't think that they're vile scum.
Well, but that's the reason that people confuse him for a conservative.
Right.
Because, frankly, conservatives today tend to want to have these conversations. There's very few conservatives that act the way the radical left does, which is, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. You're a Nazi. All you deserve to get is punched. The conservatives don't operate that way.
Bill Maher was invited for an hour to sit on Fox News with Greg Gutfeld and engage, and they didn't all agree, but engaged in a conversation about what was most important in this country. That does not happen on Stephen Colbert. It doesn't happen on Jimmy Kimmel. No. Hell, it doesn't happen on Lawrence O'Donnell, which is, by the way, frankly, funnier than the Jimmy Kimmel show these days.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that we're talking comedy shows, but look at how NBC reacted to bringing one moderate Republican on as a paid commentator, right? I mean,
yeah, but
Ronna McDaniel.
I know. I'm confused though. That was on Meet the Press. That is a comedy show, isn't it?
You're right.
You mean we're not talking about comedy shows?
Sorry. Yeah.
So Bill Maher has been making the rounds, and there's great stuff from him on the Gutfeld show on Monday night. This is him yesterday morning selling his book on The View. And Sonny Hostin wanted to make the point that Bill Maher is a little too, what's the word for it, pro-Israel. No, that's not the right word. What's the word? Oh, Jewish. That's it. He's too Jewish. Bill, what's with you being such a Jew? And here's the conversation that ensued.
The term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words migrate.
Why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice. Who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want. Okay. Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left? But don't tell me the left
or maybe the super far right. He's talking about the left.
Okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat. But don't tell me that the left hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a joke. But,
yeah.
Too dark.
It wasn't a funny joke because the conservatives have never hated Jews.
Right.
I mean, listen, there are anti-Semites on the right, but they're in no way nearly any kind of danger to Jewish people or to the Israel state like we see, I don't know, at the State Department right now. But then the conversation moved on to the war in Israel.
But it's astounding to me that they can't tell the good guys from the bad guys. I mean, just morally. I mean, let me tell you, if you're for Hamas, just live in Gaza for a day. And I'm not talking about while the war is on. I mean before the war. Trust me, you would go running and screaming and begging to live in Tel Aviv, a place that has your values. I mean, women have this is a show watched by a lot of women, have no rights in this place. And a lot of majority Muslim countries around the world. I mean, there is no equal rights as far as speech, dress, opportunities for education, reproductive rights, freedom from sexual violence, freedom from sexual harassment.
The LGBTQ community. Yes.
You that too. But you throw around the term apartheid. There is a gender apartheid in a lot of the world where women are second-class citizens at best.
Are you at all concerned about the innocent civilians that have been collectively punished and murdered largely?
You're going to want to hear the answer to that.
Yes, but really quickly, before we go on, you know that comment he made about conservatives hating Jews? Yeah. When you go on shows like The View and you're going to speak in a reasonable way, or you're even going to sound a little conservative, you got to pay the toll, right? And he had to throw in an insult to conservatives there before laying out all these truth bombs. It's like a toll you have to pay. And so, he makes that nasty comment about conservatives. And then he goes on to say a bunch of stuff that's going to make, Sonny Hostin's head explode.
Right. And the only response that Sonny Hostin has to all of that truth, all of those facts, women have no rights, gay people have no rights. You go to Tel Aviv and Israel will protect those rights. Yes. And all she can say is, but the collective punishment against innocent civilians, are you worried about that? And his answer is fantastic. You'll hear it in a moment. It's 5:44.
Are you at all concerned about the innocent civilians that have been collectively punished and murdered, largely children and women? And are you at all concerned about the fact that the International Criminal Court just today issued a subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, that's ridiculous, but it's a war.
Why?
It's a war. Because it's a war, and they were attacked, and they're defending themselves. Now, this is a war. Do you think Hamas needs to be destroyed? This is the question.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So how can we get out with a ceasefire?
All right. So Hamas needs to be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization who say openly that they want to commit genocide on the Jewish people, on the state of Israel. That's what from the river to the sea means, okay? And they say it very openly. They said, we did this attack. They've attacked Israel 5 times. They've started 5 wars since they were given that land back. They could have chosen to turn that place into any place they wanted to, and they took a lot of money that they took from the international community, and they spent it on bombs and guns and building tunnels. So if they need to be destroyed, How do we do that? It's a war.
That's the only answer. Are you concerned? And I love that. Oh, sure, all of those things about violations, right? But are you concerned about the women and children who have been punished for this? And the only answer is it's a war. And if Hamas is, you know what? Yes, I am concerned. I'm more concerned about them than Hamas is, because Hamas could stop that from happening. Two things: surrender, release the hostages, and they refuse to do it. So why aren't you concerned about that instead of making me the bad guy because I want the good guys to win the war?
Yeah, and also, of course, what Sonny Hostin never mentions, and I was sad that, Bill Maher gave a marvelous, masterful answer, but the Israelis have warned civilians, get out, giving them days' notice.
Yep.
They have brought tons and tons of food and other humanity. They've provided water. They have, with U.S. forces, have built a pier so that more humanitarian aid can be delivered. That is never mentioned. Israel is the only country in the world where, when they are attacked, they have to then provide humanitarian aid to the enemy. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Now, there's an exchange with Joy Behar there that's fantastic. I love that Joy Behar is like, hey, you're like me. You're a comic, but you talk about politics. It's like, honey, there's no difference here, okay? But listen, there's two really important revelations in Joy Behar's questioning of Bill Maher here that is really, really revealing about her and about The View, which, by the way, I want to point out to everybody, this show is not, when it first was created, The View by Barbara Walters, this was under the auspices of daytime television. So the person who runs soap operas and game shows was in charge of the show. They moved it many years later under the umbrella of ABC News. So this is a news program. This is a news program that ABC News is responsible for. So listen to the host of this news program talk about how she approaches her job.
Sure. So, but I'm nervous about saying anything against Biden because I feel, not that I have so much power, and you have some more than I do, obviously. But
I don't know about that.
Are you afraid that you might, influence people who are on the fence?
I think you lose all credibility. I do. My bond with my audience has always been I don't pull a punch.
Yeah.
My bond with my audience is you're not going to like everything I say, but I'm saying what I really think is true.
Now, good answer from Maher, I guess, but the more important revelation here, number one, Joy Behar saying we have power here with our job.
Yes.
And number two, I hesitate to say anything critical of Biden because I don't want it to help Trump.
Yes,
I don't want it to sway people on the fence.
Yes.
That ABC News, I want to reiterate, that's ABC News.
Yes. And again, it shows just what a rotten person she is. And, I like what Bill Maher said about, this sort of arrangement I have with my viewers. You're getting what he really believes when you hear Bill Maher. And that's why, and I don't know if we're going to play the clips, but, he was also on part of this tour with Megyn Kelly. And, he has these really interesting, and I think with Gutfield too, he has these really interesting conversations where he's clearly grappling with these issues. He's trying to figure out, what is my position here?
Well, I think what's happening is he's experiencing cognitive dissonance. He knows what he believes and what he's supposed to believe, being a left-wing liberal, but then he sees the reality that's playing out, right? And it's hurting his head, and he's struggling with it. One last thing here, real fast, though. Bill Maher talking about Joe Biden there on The View, saying things that Joy Behar refuses to admit.
Biden just presents as old. It's not really fair.
No.
Because he's almost the same age. Trump is almost the same age as him.
I know.
But Trump doesn't present that way. You look at somebody right away, you can kind of just sum them up. We are not young, but we don't present as old.
Yeah.
Biden does. I saw him yesterday making that speech.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he's cadaver-like.
But his brain is good. He's still great.
Well, here's what I said. When I came back after the strike in September, I said, he should get out.
Let me just say,
But his brain is good. But his brain is good. Trying so hard.
But here's the thing about that. It's actually the opposite. The problem with Joe Biden is not his age. If he were 42 years old and still behaved this way, we wouldn't be saying he's too old. We'd be saying what is true, which is his brain is damaged. Or, as you like to put it, Julie, which I have now stolen and made my own, he has mashed potatoes for brains. It's not his age. He could be 102 and still be more with it. I have seen 102-year-olds who are more with it than Joe Biden.
Yeah, but also, just in that exchange, you could see Joy trying. But his brain is good. But everything's fine. Everything's fine. She cannot admit anything. She just is not. It's not capable.
They have to serve the master.
Yes.
Yeah. It's 5:54.